thanks for I'm not in the hospitals, universal ones, and recently I've been approached by some hotels who asked me for this new product, which is station equipped with
Okay. Okay. Okay, if you're watching, Liza, I am so sorry about what's going on here. We've had all kinds of technical problems with dropping the stream, and Amanda's in the middle of we're overlapping with Clubhouse as well, and Amanda's answering a question. We'll have her unmute her mic here in just a minute on StreamYard. Isabel, thank you so much for joining. And I apologize to everyone, technology, but it looks like we're finally up on StreamYard and live on that. So we're gonna start with going and interviewing, asking some questions, kind of diving into Amanda's background, which should hopefully both another conversation that we'll join back here with in just approximately a half hour. So thank you for joining in Clubhouse. Thank you for joining online. I hope you stayed with me with these problems. I'm sorry, we've been back and forth and in and out. So everyone on stage, if you could just keep your mics muted in the meantime, and we will join you back and look forward to having more conversation with everyone here in Clubhouse. In the meantime, enjoy the conversation with Amanda. So I'm going to jump over and I'm going to act as if we are just starting here live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And oh my goodness, thank you. Oh, the juggle. Mercury must be in retrograde or something.
I know. I had
okay.
I had like 7 technology issues this morning on top of other things going on in the hotel.
And Amanda, I don't hear you very well. You're very soft. So let me see if I'll up my mic a little bit too. Okay. So starting over, I want to welcome everyone to the live stream of Celebrity Customer Experience Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything employee experience to customer experience related. And I apologize for the glitches and the on and off. So hopefully you probably came in and was like, what's going on? It's kind of in the middle of conversation. You could hear parts and not hear parts. So I apologize for that. Full ownership on tech problems. But today, thank you for joining in and with my guest on Celebrity Customer Experience. And why Celebrity Customer Experience? It's apropos for today's guest as well. But the name of the show is called that because I believe that every customer, every person deserves the same treatment and pampering as a celebrity gets, because we all know how celebrities treated, right, when they're a customer. So before I bring Amanda on, I just want to remind everyone that if you're watching live, you can comment directly on one of the live streams. And if you're watching and comment along the way, and I will see them, they'll get highlighted. If you are watching the replay, or if you're on Clubhouse, take some notes along the way so that when we come back to you and have conversation on Clubhouse, we can engage you in that conversation. And if you're watching the replay, write in your comments there, tag Amanda and myself, so that we can respond to you and engage in that conversation. So without further ado, officially, finally, I want to welcome Amanda Loucks to the show today. Amanda has over 15 years of experience in hospitality sales and marketing. Throughout her career, Amanda's passion has always been creating exceptional and memorable customer experiences, which stems from having the right employees and positive employee experience and company culture. With experience at the Ritz, Carlton, Bank of America, and Marriott International, she's worked in a variety of operational, sales, and marketing roles, and is currently the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Beverly Hills Marriott. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Amanda, for joining me, and I'm sorry for all the chaos in the beginning. I don't hear you. Are you unmuted, Amanda? On StreamYard?
Yeah, let's see. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Now I hear you. Yep.
You hear me?
That's,
okay.
That's good.
I was muted on my computer, but not on stream.
It's a bit echoey. I'm not sure why. Let's see what happens. It's a bit of a reverb going on.
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Since I was on Clubhouse, or I am on Clubhouse, it doesn't let you turn the volume all the way off on there. So it was like super light in the background. So maybe that's better now.
That's better. Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's jump in. Thank you. So give us a little bit of your background. So I understand from our previous conversation that you started at the age of 17 and I haven't looked back. And really, that's the reason for the title of this episode is A Hospitality Life, as I mentioned earlier on Clubhouse. So, you know, later we'll dive into a little bit broader meaning of hospitality life and what that entails. But as this pertains to you really having your entire career life in the hotel industry, give us a little bit about that background so everyone here understands where you come from, where that passion comes from for the industry.
Yeah, definitely. I was really lucky to start off with Ritz-Carlton. I was a little older than 17 when I started there, but I started there really young when I was in college, kind of by accident. It wasn't like my goal to work at the Ritz-Carlton. It just kind of happened by getting a tour there with school. And I started off as a pool attendant, which was a really fun, amazing job. I worked in a lot of operational positions, and that is the best place to start working in a hotel. I mean, they really empower you. And I had this sense of ownership of, even as a pool attendant, I felt like it was my hotel. I felt like they were my guests. I knew I could solve any problem and could do anything I needed to take care of my guests. And that really shaped my thoughts and opinions on customer experience and employee empowerment. In 2009, I worked at the Ritz-Carlton in Buckhead. My position was eliminated in what was a huge financial crisis at the time. And I ended up going back to school to get my MBA, and I worked at Bank of America at the same time. And Bank of America was a wonderful experience. I learned a ton. It's a fantastic company. But the whole time I was there, I really missed working for a company that, customer experience was the top most important priority for them. I missed the hotel world. So when the opportunity came back up eventually for me to get back with the Ritz-Carlton, I did that. And, I've worked in several roles since then. I'm fortunate now to be working as the Director of Sales and Marketing in beautiful Beverly Hills, California. it's a weird world to be in right now, but it's a fantastic location, and I'm really happy and lucky to be working in this market.
Yeah, amazing. So we'll go into that a little bit deeper. One of the things that I heard you say that really that stood out to me is that your first job, even as a pool attendant, that you felt ownership, that you felt the pride in your job to perform in a way as if you were owner, with that kind of mentality with Ritz-Carlton. So where did that come from? I mean, was that something that Ritz-Carlton created in the way that they interviewed you from the beginning, and the way that they onboarded you? Like, what is it that allowed that to happen as a pool attendant?
Yeah, I think the interview process and the onboarding process and employee engagement as a whole with that company is second to none. I think it's so important to be hiring the right people and to be very selective with who you hire. And sometimes you have to really take your time and wait weeks and weeks or months to find the right person for the job. And Ritz-Carlton, they really focus on finding the right person. So the talent base who works there is really the best of the best. But then from day one, it's about setting the tone with the employees. And ensuring they know that they are empowered and that they are the important people at the hotel, and that they solve the problems, and that leadership trusts them to solve the problem. So from day one, day two, day three, I knew that I could do whatever I needed to do to solve a problem. And that's as a pool attendant, that if I needed to do something, my boss and their boss and their boss would say, yep, we trust you, we believe in you, and you made the right choice. Now, sometimes maybe you spend more money than you need to, or you go way above and beyond to solve a really simple problem. You're never coached or reprimanded for that. They help you find the way to maybe do it better next time. But I think from day one, the Ritz-Carlton is a fantastic example of making sure employee empowerment and employee engagement is at the forefront of everything they do, which then trickles down to providing a world-class customer experience.
Wow. Gosh, so much of what you say, I love it. And actually, it ties into kind of the framework that I use when I work with my clients, that we talk about that hiring is so important, and that you think about what are your core values, and you wait and you make sure that you are bringing on the right staff, right? Because you could bring on someone who's got a great resume but a bad attitude, and you can train them, but they're still going to have a bad attitude. So it's more important that you hire the right person and train them for those skills. So huge. So we'll go a little bit into that, but I was going to talk later about the Ritz-Carlton, but since we're talking about it now, let's kind of dive a little bit into that first. I heard an amazing podcast with Horst Schultz's talking about the Ritz-Carlton's 24 standards of service, and how they would be one by one would be discussed within the company. He would send an email to each of the managers at each location and talk about one value of service, one thing that was really important that day, and that would be lived out throughout the property, throughout the service, throughout the interactions with everyone, both employees, your fellow employees, and your customers. And then the next day would be the next standard of service. And he would go through the 24, and then they would start all over. So after someone's been there for multiple years, it's intuitive. It's second nature for them, right? And were those things still happening when you were there?
Yeah, they absolutely happen every single day. And that started when, I think maybe it was 1992 when Ritz-Carlton was up to be a candidate for the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award, which isn't something that's always given out to hospitality companies. That's something that you might see a manufacturing company or something like that get this type of award. They implemented what they call the commitment to quality. And still to this day, It's lived out every single day without fail. Every single department does line up, is what we call it. You all stand up. Historically, you might line up in a restaurant and they check your uniform. So that came from kind of that idea of lining up before a shift at a restaurant. So we all do line up when you work at the Ritz-Carlton, and it might be one person in the department that day, but they read the commitment to quality. And every single Ritz-Carlton, whether it was where I was in Orlando or Buckhead or LA, does the same thing as Central Park or in Asia or Hong Kong or Bali. We all read the same service value, and we talked about it every day. We role played, we did examples. Whether you're a front desk agent or the GM, you had stand up or you had line up every single day, and that was so consistent among the brand. And that's something that really brought the culture to life with that brand, and something that's always so memorable to me to this day, no longer being with that brand anymore.
Yeah, I love that. And it's something that I incorporate into the work that I do, which also overlaps with the kind of my ethos, what I grew up in the food industry. Like you talked about a pre-shift for restaurants. I grew up in the QSR industry, the quick service restaurant industry. And the values were really important, making sure that even people don't think about those things with quick service restaurants, certainly more definitely in the hotel space. But, I find that such a valuable tip. So anyone listening on Clubhouse now or watching this live or the replay, I want to really just emphasize that that's one strong takeaway you can take and apply immediately in your business to make sure that your values, your vision, your mission are really super clear, and that everybody in your business really understands that right from day one. Setting the tone for your employees, right? And I think that's why I think how they value their people and their employees is very much set by the very famous motto of "We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen," right? So it's not just about the customer. It's like, this is who we are. We give honor to our people, and we're serving in the same way, in that same honor to our customers. I love that. Did you hear the motto of "We're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen" often?
Yeah, every day, probably without fail. And one thing that always stood out to me, and something I absolutely still carry to this day, is, I preface this with saying it's a fine line to walk. That the Ritz-Carlton expects its guests to be absolutely respectful to the employees that work there as well. Sometimes it's really hard line to navigate. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately we're here to provide great service as hoteliers to our guests, but there needs to be a reciprocation of that respect. And Ritz-Carlton did a fantastic job. There was times as a leader where you did have to address it with a guest if they were rude or nasty or inappropriate to an employee, like as far as yelling and berating to a front desk agent, for example. You would address it to the guest. And it's something still, even outside the brand, that I try to remember, that it's never okay for for a guest to be nasty to an employee. That doesn't mean a guest can't be upset. It doesn't mean a guest can't be angry. It doesn't mean a guest can't have very high expectations. But there is always a line that, as a leader in an organization, we have to keep in mind, and we have to make sure that our employees feel that we have their back and we have their support. But that still is a tough line to navigate, because it's okay for a guest to be upset, but how are they communicating that? And is it personal, and is it inappropriate to how they're dealing with the employee themselves?
Very tricky. And I think in today's world, especially, that's a problem across the board. So I'm curious, since my work is helping businesses, particularly restaurants, hospitality, from the employee experience to the customer experience, how is that done? Do they communicate do they give training and education around the language used, how to speak to someone? I mean, those are very specific communication skills and emotional intelligence, right? You have to have a very high emotional intelligence to really understand what's happening in the moment, especially when someone's in a stress level and they're upset about something. Do they actually give guidance and training on how that's done, how to accomplish that?
I think yes and no. Some hotels and some brands are better than other with giving the actual guidance. When I first started with Ritz Carlton, they really coached us to say, like, it's my pleasure. But then we got away from coaching people to say specific language because we wanted it to be natural. If you didn't feel comfortable saying it's my pleasure, if that wasn't something you genuinely felt, we got to the point where we weren't coaching people to say specific language. But I will say, I think the biggest thing as a leader is to lead by example with what you say, how you communicate, how you email people, how you speak to people. I know a lot of what I say, what I do, what I write, I've learned by watching leaders, by watching our general managers, by watching, former directors of sales and marketing, former sales managers before I was in those positions, of watching them and mirroring them. And, I'm imagining a few people in my head of like that. A lot of what I've learned and how I've grown into a leader was by modeling what they did because they lived and breathed the culture. They were a leader, a true leader every single day. And I think that's the most important thing. We can give manuals, we can write emails, we can tell people what to say, we can tell people what to do. But the line level employees are going to watch you and they're going to see what you say. They're going to see how you react to customers. They're going to see how you communicate and how you greet people. And eventually the good eggs will mirror what you do and will learn from you to provide that same level of service in a way that's unique to them as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's why that management level is so critical, that they're on board, that they understand, that they exhibit it, because, we can speak all day long, but people learn and remember most. The retention happens and the learning happens most from what people do versus what people say, for sure. Yeah. So people can have some key takeaways. How would you advise your staff, being, director, marketing, and sales right now? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of attitude that comes in there. How would you specifically advise your staff to be able to handle a situation like that so people can maybe learn something specific?
I think a big thing for me is it's so important to treat other people the way they want to be treated. Oftentimes you hear, treat people the way you want to be treated. But I think it's so important to remember that people want different levels of service. People want different types of service. People feel comfortable at different levels. So it's about communicating with your guest, really reading the nonverbal cues, asking questions. It's okay to ask questions to your guests, to learn how they prefer to be communicated with, what level of service they want. So I think that's the big thing, is to remember to treat other people the way they want to be treated. But then as a leader, if you're leading a team, to every single day live and breathe the philosophy that you want your team to execute on. So if you're front office manager and you're dealing with upset guests and you're handling maybe escalations of speaking and communicating in a way that you would also want your employees, your front desk agents, to speak and to communicate, 100% of the time, like what you say and how you coach them. Don't go back behind the front desk and grumble and gripe about the guest, because they're going to see that and they're going to hear that and they're going to feel that then. Yes. It's about remembering that we're in the service business. And we are here to serve and take care of and welcome people to our hotel. So in the front of the house, or in, as we like to call it sometimes in hotels, the heart of the house. You're always on stage. So living and breathing that customer service in the front and the back is super important.
Yes, I love what you said, treating people how they want to be treated, right? The golden rule is treat people how you would want to be treated, but the platinum rule is treating them how they want. And how do we know what that is asking. I think you're right. I think it's so crucial that we ask questions of both our customers and our employees, because otherwise, how would we know what it is that they want most? How do we really provide them with the service they want, with the whatever it is, whatever problem they're trying to solve, whatever it is their need is? How do we know what that is if we don't have that communication? We don't have a conversation and ask questions and really, really listen. So speaking about that, let's talk for a second about customer feedback, because that's really important. And I think you could apply the same thing to employees. Like, how do you get that feedback? Because we want to leverage that to really listen to the voice of that person to be able to create the positive experience. So how is, there are many different ways that can be obtained. So what are a few ideas and ways that you've experienced throughout your career of how you obtain the feedback? And then, of course, it's one thing just to get it, but you don't want to sit on it. So then how is it actually processed and then utilized in the workforce so that you can get those good results?
Yeah, I love this topic because it's something that I think is so important. First and foremost, the way I feel is feedback is a gift that we're given to improve ourselves, improve our departments, improve our hotels, improve whatever type of business that we're running. But don't ask the questions if you don't care to hear the feedback and if you don't care to make improvements. There's nothing worse than asking for the feedback if you're not going to take actionable steps to make improvements. Whether that's the voice of the customer through your customer feedback surveys, whether it's at the front desk asking someone how their stay was, whether it's an employee engagement survey that you might have once a year to get feedback from the employees. If you're asking the questions, it's so important that you take it seriously and follow through on taking actionable steps to make improvements. On that note, I think it's also important to really think about what are your main business drivers in your hotel with your employees, and to make sure that the questions are tailored to appropriately kind of respond to your success factors, if you will. So making sure that you're fine-tuning what questions you're asking to get to maybe the root cause of whether it's a service issue or an engagement issue of, don't just Google the 10 questions you need to ask. Don't just use the generic questions from the company that might facilitate your feedback survey. Really personalize it and customize it and ask the questions that need to be asked based on what areas you want to focus on.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. And then from that, and I love what you said that, are using that as the greatest source. So I'm so bad with remembering names with quotes, but there's a well-known quote that says something, I'm going to paraphrase here, but basically our greatest source of information for our company is the complaints of our customers. It's that feedback, whether it's negative or positive. Positive is great, you know what to continue, but what's more beneficial is really knowing what they didn't like so that you can improve upon that. So we do have a comment and a question coming in from Facebook. Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to put this up on the screen. Daniel asks, question for Amanda. What is done in your industry to attract and retain talent in today's employment market? Also want to thank her for years at BOFA and how much she's influenced my career. That's beautiful.
Hi, how are you? It's nice to see your face and your name come through. I think it's really hard right now in regards to employment and attracting employees or hiring employees right now in regards to the hotel industry. We just don't have a lot of jobs. I will say that in regards to looking for talent and looking for people, I'll give an example. So a specific example. So there was an individual, we did have a job posted at my hotel. There was an individual, I knew her former manager, and her former manager reached out and said, hey, so-and-so is interested. And I said, give her my information, have her follow up with me. She was very slow to do it. She was very slow to submit the application. And by the time she did follow up with me and I was able to share her application with HR, we had already interviewed people. So I would say, to make sure that you're being timely, and to make sure if someone's offering you help, to make sure you're kind of following through on that and like not delaying and being prompt. But then also, some of us a lot of people are really on top of it with the applications, of thinking differently, and how can you stand out from the crowd? Can you send a video message to the hiring manager? We all have phones. We can all send a quick video. Like if I got a video from someone who was looking for a job, I would be like, oh, wow, that's great. I get to see their face before I even pull their resume. Just thinking outside the box of how can you stand out from the crowd. But then also, of course, doing all the research with like making sure your resume is right and all that kind of stuff as well. But, in the hotel industry, it's not rocket science. It's about hiring the right person, the right personality. Maybe you haven't done that specific job before, but what personality traits do you have? So I think making sure that you stand out as a person, and your personality and your heart, your personality and what you care for, making that stand out in the hotel industry, to me as a hiring manager, is really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great example. I love your idea of a video. I actually had a coaching call this week with a couple of clients, and I specifically, they're in the food industry, they're in restaurants, and they were saying that they're also having staffing problems. So I think it's universal, particularly with what's going on COVID. Staffing always seems to be the biggest problem, but particularly now with the pandemic. And they were saying how, that they feel they can't get around to see everybody. And so it's that personal touch. And I actually suggested that they make a video to reach out to their people directly. And I think your point is so spot on, because when you send a video, they get a sense of who you are. They feel your body language. They feel your energy. And you have an opportunity to really stand out above others. It's not being done very common. It's kind of like now when you send snail mail, it stands out because most people don't send mail. They send, an email or a text. So I just want to maybe build on that and say, after you send your video and you reach out, drop a letter in the mail, drop a quick note, and just say, I'm really looking forward to working for your company. Whether if you've already met with them, then you reference what your interview was and your meeting. But those I think are two great ways to really stand out in today's market, where, employment, being hired, retention becomes a big problem.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Who doesn't love to get like a physical letter in the mail? Like it doesn't happen very often unless it's junk mail. So it is nice to get that and see that, and it certainly would be memorable. But then to anybody who is looking for a job in the job market right now, I think it's so important to not take potential rejection personally, because there's so many people looking, and it's important to not let that personally affect you. I know it's hard, but even if you might be an amazing applicant who, would be a huge addition to any organization, there could be, somebody else who has done the job for 15 years and has worked at the hotel before. And so just don't let any rejection affect you personally, and just make sure that you're doing things to better yourself. Like maybe you're getting on a website like Upwork and doing some little side projects and side business to better yourself while you're looking for a job, or to get some experience in that field. So always be thinking about making sure that you're improving and learning and growing throughout the job search as well.
Absolutely. You want to present yourself as the fullest capable person. And I want to just really, again, highlight what you said and take it to a broader sense, that just if you don't get a specific job that you apply to, don't take that as an absolute no. there are other opportunities. And like you said, maybe it's just not the right time. They're not the right position. This other person, for example, was slow. And so you already were in the process with others. There's so many factors. And so don't overanalyze and then get stuck, right? Overanalyze and then get paralyzed by figuring out, beating up on yourself and all this negative self-talk. But looking to continue to better yourself, to find something else. And maybe you weren't the right fit for that particular position. Maybe there's another position. So by showing up and having that interview, getting to know the company and doing your homework in advance to let them know that you know all about who they are, what their culture is, what they stand for, and why you would be a good fit as a contributor to that culture. Those are things I think that make you stand out and show that you're getting more and more fully prepared and qualified for anything that comes along. And we all have different personality types. Like I actually just finished my certification in something called Type Coach, which is very fascinating because when I hear us, this conversation, it makes me think of that because there are certain personalities that are suited and your abilities, your capabilities, not that we're not all capable of doing anything, but the thing that comes natural to us, where we best fit with our personality types. And that's where you want to shine. That's where you're going to be the happiest. And that's where you're going to be most productive for that company that you're representing. And so, maybe just look at it as like, you know what? That wasn't the right fit for who I am. And there's something else out there. So, thank you for that encouragement and other ways for them to continue to strengthen themselves in the meantime as they're going forward. So we touched on hiring and starting with the importance of how important it is to hire, like you mentioned with Ritz Carlton, that they waited to find the right person. You start out on the right foot by having the right people in place that then you can train. But I want to wrap up and then we're going to go back on. And anyone who's watching live on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, I encourage you and welcome you to join us back on Clubhouse. We're about to go back there in just a minute or two, and we'll continue with conversation and questions and discussion there with Amanda. So I just want to circle back with hiring, kind of where we started, the importance of hiring and the importance of when you do so, how you find the right candidate and how you onboard them appropriately so that you're getting that what you're providing an opportunity for that wow experience to happen by giving them the power and the empowerment by entrusting them to do their own problem solving, et cetera.
Yeah, I think, really is such an important topic. I'm thinking back to my time at the Ritz Carlton when I was in Orlando. And, to this date, without fail, that team that I had was the best team that I've ever had in regards to employees. And I'm thinking about those individuals. Most of them had no actual job experience other than being interns or like smaller jobs, like no full-time job experience. They were individuals out of college. And I remember my leaders being like, you can't hire them. They don't have experience. But I knew that from the interview and from meeting them that they were really amazing people. But then once you hire them, once you get these amazing people on your team as a leader, it's so important that you're putting the effort into making sure they're onboarded, of making sure that when they show up on day one, that they feel expected, that they're coming into like just the basics. They've got a training plan in place. They've got a desk. They've got the tools, the supplies they need. And that first couple of weeks is so important of taking the time before they get there to set out the training plan, to make sure their schedule's in place, to making sure they're meeting the right people, to make sure they're taking the right classes. Because once they get up and running, it's hard to go back. It's hard to make sure that they get time with the departments they need to have, that they get time to do the training they need to have. So I think the first few weeks are so crucial to make sure that, one, they feel welcomed to your team, because that sets a really important tone for them. But two, that they are investing the time up front to learn what they need to learn and not just throwing people into it, although that happens sometimes in the hotel industry. But then also having those conversations on a regular basis with your employees of what are the gaps? what do they think they need to learn? What do you think they need to learn? Of that regular communication with them, of helping to coach them on an ongoing basis, of not just telling them what they need to do, but coaching them. And I think with coaching, a lot of times, it's not necessarily just giving advice. It's helping them find the right path for them, helping them decide what they think they need to learn next. So it's really a combination of hiring the right people, setting a great first impression and setting them up for success in the first few weeks, but then carrying that on throughout their tenure on your team, of having the conversations, asking what they want to do next. Sometimes people aren't going to want to do anything next. That's what they may want to be an admin. That might be the career path they've chosen, and that's wonderful and amazing if that's what they want to do. But they still need to learn and grow and be engaged, even if that their choice is to be an admin in your sales team for the next 20 years. I would be so happy if someone wanted to do that, but they have to still be engaged, still learn, still grow, still feel like they're being a value and giving a value to your team as well.
Wow, 100%. So again, just I love when you said, you have to think about what you need to do up front, because once everyone is crazy and busy and you're in your job and you're in your task and life is nuts in the moment, there is almost never time to go back to the beginning to do what should have been done from the start. And I believe that we need to educate our people, not just train them about what it is that's expected of them, what your company's values are, what your purpose is, what you're about, and how you want to be represented. You can't go back in the middle of everything. It's really hard. You have to start off with that from the very beginning, hiring stages and the onboarding. And I do agree that I think it's not just onboarding, but it's ongoing. Mm-hmm. And that ongoing training that you alluded to, that you discussed and mentioned, that is not a one-stop boot camp. I'm also a licensed real estate agent. And I remember when I was looking around at what brokerage to join, they all had these boot camps. And first I was like mesmerized. I thought, oh, that's so awesome. I'm a life learner. I love to jump in and get all this information. And then I thought, well, dang, after that, it's like you're left on your own. And so we don't want to do a boot camp. We want to do great onboarding and continuous ongoing education, and making sure that really, to go full circle here, like the values of Ritz Carlton, they're given out and they're lived into on a daily basis. And when they get through with them, they repeat and go again. So it's constant. The ongoing education is just as strong as the onboarding education at the very beginning. So
yeah,
I
totally agree.
I just want to let everyone know how to connect with you. If you're watching live, if you go back and watch the replay, you can see Amanda's LinkedIn link. It's up on the screen, and it really is just her name, and her last name is Loucks, Amanda Loucks. I think I pronounced that correct.
No, you did it perfect.
Thanks for the little pronunciation tool on LinkedIn. That's great. So anyway, Amanda, so great to speak with you. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the live stream. I'm sorry, everyone here live, that there was a mess up in the beginning, but we're going to jump back to Clubhouse and keep the conversation going. Really excited to have you. And thank you. And I just want to tell everyone a little bit about next week. So Amanda, I'll join you in just a minute on Clubhouse. Okay. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye, everybody.
So next Thursday, we will have an interesting guest who comes from the customer experience background, and she's merging that now into using feng shui as how to make your employee experience better, how to make your customer experience better through the use and the perspective of the lens of feng shui. So that should be very interesting. Same time, same place. We're going to do that on Clubhouse. Again, opening up Clubhouse room at 11:45. We will do our live interview. Hopefully no delays next time. It's the first time this has happened, from 12 to 12:30, and join back, bookending it on Clubhouse again to continue the conversation with Claire there as well. So thanks everyone on the live stream for joining us today. And hopefully you'll join us on Clubhouse now. So we will see you next Thursday and Tuesday. Join me for just a quick 10-minute experience stories, quick wins that you can apply in your business anytime. Thanks so much.